Hello and welcome back to the GX3 Media Podcast. This is your host, Nate Beyer, and today we're going to try something different as we continue to figure out what all the knobs and buttons and dials and whistles do in this program with all the hardware, whatever. We're going to try to bring in our first phone call interview. Today I have somebody who is definitely a safety net for me because he works in radio. Everybody say hello. Mike Baker from WRJC in Boston. Mike, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I spy Nate. Actually, I don't spy Nate, but I hear Nate.
Yeah. Again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for trying to help test out our audio today. Hey, this is something that you probably do on a almost daily basis. Have a coach call in to either work with promos or just to talk about game previews or whatever. It's a little different probably for you to be on the other end of this.
A little bit, but I guess I've been on both ends here and there over the past. So it's a good experience for all of us.
Mike, how long have you worked in radio, or what did you go to school for? Did you go to school to be in radio or communications?
I kind of did. I went to UW Platteville. I started off wanting to be an ag educational teacher, and about a semester in, I'm like, I don't know if I could work with kids in that capacity. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good at talking. I'm good at knowing sports. So let's go into the campus radio station and major in communications. And that's where I went from there and got a lot of experience at WSUP down in Platteville on the campus radio station. Called a lot of pioneer football, basketball, softball, baseball games. And then about 8 years ago, I worked for another station. 7 years ago, I started at WRJC in Boston, and I've been there covering Boston and Scenic Bluff sports ever since.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard not to find you on the sports trail during the season. I think your schedule runs about as hot as ours does. I mean, you're on the road 4 or 5 nights a week.
Yeah, on a good week, I get Wednesday and Sunday off, and the rest of the week, I'm at some undisclosed location, someplace in the Scenic Bluffs or uh, Boston area. And it's fun. I wouldn't be at so many places if I didn't enjoy doing it. And also, I enjoy being there for the fans and the kids playing as well.
Well, radio is something that I do think is a medium we keep up with. Again, I work in newspaper. I don't know how I don't want to say well received because I think our newspaper, the stuff that we produce is pretty well received, but it's hard to reach a kind of a new and emerging audience because our younger generation just doesn't, they just don't pick up a newspaper. We don't necessarily thumb through a newspaper like we used to 10, 20 years ago. Radio is still a little different. And I think that there are different ways to reach an audience simply because of the way that the medium works.
Yeah, I'm always surprised because even in radio, I think that's kind of less and less as we keep going on. Everyone has different mediums now that you can get sports audio and get everything they're looking for. But guess maybe we're lucky to live in the area we do, where radio is still very much a part of a lot of people's lives. And even the kids, I got middle school kids. They're always like, Mike, can you come into our games? And I think that's a good thing that even some of the younger kids are excited for radio and excited for radio coverage when I'm at their games.
It's kind of cool because I think I get that a little bit here and there with the photos, the photo work that we do, and there is something cool about when you see, especially that junior high level or some even younger kids. I mean, I hear whispers at times, different places. I'll show up and I'll hear whispers here and there. Oh, that's so and so. That's so and so. They're here to do this. They do really good, work here or there, or whatever they say. They probably say, "Oh, great, he's here again. Let's send him home." Um, but I mean, you get the same thing, and it is kind of a cool feeling. And like I said, yours is different than mine, and we both serve the same purpose in the long run, in the big picture. But with photo, I can sit at a game for 10 minutes and then leave and run someplace else. The philosophy that Logan and I take with GX3 Media is sports are the way that we're going to share sports or attend sports. It has to be like a buffet. We don't want to get too involved with any one thing. We want to spread out the love. We want to try it all. We want to try some volleyball. We want to try some cross country, try some soccer. But we very rarely are able to settle in on and hone in on one specific game. Yours is different. You get to sit there and watch an entire game, start to finish. You're usually there during JV matches. You're usually there during, way before warm up. You're yeah, and then you stay after because I know you're doing interviews after games too, and you love to bring kids on the radio, kids and coaches, and I think that adds a very specific personal touch to the product that you make.
Yeah, and obviously I want to do a good job while I'm on the radio, and I want to be the very best at what I do. But it's not about me; it's about the kids. It's about the community, and that's why I have the kids come on after games and have a chance to talk to them in the community beforehand and after games and stuff too, because it's about them. It's not about me; it's about them, and I enjoy making them the stars of the games, the stars of the show. And I'm just there trying to do the best I can to narrate through everything.
Well, and again, not every area. Again, I cover a big area. I would say southwestern Wisconsin has a larger number of radio stations or has a larger radio presence um, than I think what we do in our area. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And maybe it's just because it feels like whenever I end up at a Mineral Point or a Cuba City or a Darlington, they're playing a big game. So they're definitely always going to have some sort of radio type coverage. But I really do think southwestern Wisconsin's pretty well covered when it comes to radio. And again, we don't have that same type of coverage, I would say, here. Would you agree or disagree with maybe that statement?
I agree with that for the most part, and that's kind of going to college down there at Platteville and getting kind of immersed in the local media down there and seeing what the Platteville station, the WPVL, the stations down there that are all kind of one big group together, seeing what they do. And when I got this job here in Boston for Juneau County, that's kind of what I wanted to bring to this area, and that's why part of the reason again why I do so many games because I saw what they did down there, and I'm like, I want to do that here. I want to build and get as many schools on and stuff like that in our area as we can, and give the kids as much love as we can.
Well, Mike, we have enjoyed the month of July. I know you had some Legion, some state Legion stuff, some Legion baseball that you covered. I got through some Legion baseball this past week as well. But the big thing is we started football. I mean, we started another school year. I know we're not ready for it, or maybe you are. I'm not ready, but we're starting football season. How exciting is that for you?
Oh, it's fair. I'm always ready for football season, and it was kind of cool for only one thing when COVID hit because we had spring football that year and we got a jump start in the football season and we kind of got two football seasons in one that year. So I'm always ready for the football season to begin. And I'm extremely excited and I'm counting down the days until our first game, but I get a little bit of training camps in ourselves as well.
Yeah, that COVID year was fun because we had so much upheaval, chaos, things that were new, things that were different. All of a sudden, Team A is going to play Team B until Thursday when something happened. One of the teams got shut down, and now Team A is going to play Team, I don't know, Q. And we got we ended up with interesting matchups, but we also ended up with that weird, but I'm going to say very excellent spring season.
Yeah, and I know some people, it's a fringe group, but it's a fringe group I think that you're sort of a part of, would actually like to see some of the fall sports play during the spring in the future.
Again, logistically, there's a lot of positives, I think. And the trouble that I have with it is you gave me a taste of it. And I got really, really enamored with this idea that as we go through the season, the weather actually gets nicer instead of the weather becoming worse, more miserable, less tolerable. And outside of not, we didn't have a playoff season that spring, but still, like, it was really nice to get to that. I don't know, what was it, week 6, week 7, whatever we did. And all of a sudden it's light out after halftime, which
Yeah,
was very weird.
it's kind of like the Benjamin Button football season. Everything was in reverse with the weather and whatnot.
That's a great, That's a great look at it. And like I said, it's celebrating 5 years. So I would love to see some team put on a T-shirt, "Hey, celebrating the fifth anniversary of a weird spring season." Some really convoluted, oddball T-shirt that I'm sure nobody would actually really want. Maybe that's something that we should do through GX3 Media this year. We're looking at some apparel options, and maybe it's a weird celebrating the oddball COVID year T-shirt that would be a desirable product.
I just know every promo, every ad I did for the games we were covering, it had some kind of weird theme, like a Erie, Indiana theme, a Goosebumps theme, a Twilight Zone theme, and that was really fun to tie that together, just because it was so odd and everything was so weird that year. We really did feel like in 2020, even into 2021, we were kind of in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Well, and speaking of Twilight Zone, are you recovered from this past Monday/Tuesday morning? Are you recovered yet? Because my week ended up as I'm glad that I'm glad that we did what we did, but that late night was rough.
Yeah, and some people are going to laugh at me, and some people are going to be like, "Yeah, you're old," but you're over 40. I know you're young, 40 plus, but the closer I get to 40, the harder nights like that are for me. So it was awesome. It was cool to see team practice as soon as they possibly could, right at midnight in Eau Claire Regis. But yeah, it took me a couple days to recover.
Yeah, so here's how it went down. I went to Westby that afternoon. First of all, let's lay out the whole day. I had played volleyball both days this weekend, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Sunday, I was down by Platteville. So it's a 2 hour drive home after playing ball all day. I'm tired. And then we come to Monday. I've got 4 hours of swimming lessons, so 4 hours of water time, water and sunshine time. After that, I went to Westby to watch Westby and Viroqua play their Legion kind of semifinal game. I guess it wasn't until 6. So there were a few hours that I was at home, but I didn't take a nap. I just kind of kept going. And lo and behold, here we are. We're watching baseball. And once the game kind of seemed out of hand or in hand for Viroqua at least, I bounced. I came back. I recorded something for a little bit. I, tried to monkey around in the studio to again try to keep practicing the podcast business. And then along the way, I talked to you about possibly going to midnight practice. I think I called you and was like, "Mike, this is what I have. This is what I could do." And you were like, "Idiot! It is weird and unique. You need to go." And then you said, "I'll probably go too." And you gave me a buddy to ride with. So yeah, we went up to Regis for their annual midnight kickoff, their midnight practice on the first day of football season. And I just told myself, do not think of the consequences. Tomorrow's probably going to hurt, but you also are going to go home with a story that you can tell people. Hey, everybody, on the first night of football practice, the good Lord brought to me a bunch of football guys in black and green. And that's what we got. And it it was something that I've wanted to do for a few years. And I got stormed out once, another year, just didn't work out. And this year, I'm glad that we gave it a shot.
And something I've never seen with football before. I've seen it with college basketball where they have midnight madnesses to kick off their seasons and stuff like that. But never in football, especially at the prep level. And I give a lot of credit to Eau Claire Regis. I'm sure there's a lot of logistics and stuff that we don't even think about. They got to work out as far as having a practice at midnight because they're right in the middle of town. They got a neighborhood right next to their practice field, and they had music cranked up. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that goes into that we don't even think about in order to organize something like that. But give them credit for doing something like that, and give credit to their fans, the Regis community as well, because there's a lot of fans there taking in this midnight practice.
That was the part that I knew that we would have fans, but we got there, I don't know, 11:15 or so. They had already been there. They were kind of tailgating. I saw weird green glowy sticks on a number of people. Like people were just milling around in the parking lot. People were pulling in. The parking lot was full at the school. Not that it holds a lot of cars to begin with, but I mean, there was a very generous crowd at that event. And again, we got there early. They didn't come out onto the field until 12:30, actually.
And I think the fans that were there, they figured, well, we better stay up all night, otherwise we're going to fall asleep and not come back at midnight. So, yeah, but no, give credit to their fans for being out there. That's really cool, and I think it's they're a traditionally strong football program in Regis, but it's things like this that I think keep them traditionally strong.
Again, I was very grateful for the access that Coach Brenner gave us. He brought us down into the locker room, took us into their meeting room. I love watching coaches and how they do things, and he's one that I think almost demands or requires some sort of respect just because of the body of work he's produced, and watching all of a sudden these kids just start migrating into the room. I don't think they were told. I think maybe the seniors or some of the older ones said we better get going. They went into their meeting room, they sat there, writing down goals or writing down some of these other things, listen to coach talk, listen to coach show off their fishing trophy awards, whatever. Some of these little things that keep it personal and not just about football. Yeah, they have a lot of coaches as well. I mean, that's one of the benefits they have is when you're
Oh my gosh,
successful.
they had like 20 coaches there.
Yeah,
There's some D7 schools that don't have that many players as they have coaches.
yeah, and I think that's a testament to what that program is. I would say, like, people want to be part of success, and it's hard. It's also hard though to take that many coaches and put them all on the same page. But once they ran out onto the field, I'm watching them run through drills, and they had stations all over the field. Coaches ran through things. They were pretty efficient with their time. They had drills planned out. I mean, their practice looked like a pretty well-oiled machine.
Yeah, there's some NFL training camps that I think don't run as tight a practice as they were running there at Regis.
I mean, so we stayed for about 45 minutes. I guess I never texted them back. I should have figured out how long they actually went. I knew that I had to go back in the pool Tuesday morning, and I had some things Tuesday night that needed to get taken care of. So going home at a time was good. I am really glad that you were there because I think by the time we got back to about Black River Falls, it kind of was hitting me that this is going to hurt. And I was getting a little tired. Again, Eau Claire to home is about 90 minutes. It's all pretty easy driving in the interstate, especially at night when nobody else is on the road. But I mean, it takes a lot of effort to go out and do that thing late. But it was a cool. Yeah, I'm totally glad I went. Like I said, I love to see behind the curtain a little bit. I love to hear good coaches, any coach actually. Let me hear your philosophies on coaching. Let me hear your philosophies on the season, your thoughts on the season. Let me see what you're trying to do to prepare your kids either for football or for life. And that, I know that was one thing that he talked about up there was, football is a vehicle to make you a better person, through discipline, hard work, and all that. And that's something that, again, those are notions that I really like to hear from coaches. Again, even a program that wins as much as it does, it's good to hear some coaches reiterate that because it's not all about being bigger, faster, stronger, win, win, win. There are some of these other personal elements to things.
And I think it was good for me because there's always this private versus public school debate and stuff out there, and it's good to see that Eau Claire just is there some benefits to being a private school? There is, but the reason they're so good is the work they put in as coaches and as players out there, and that's why they're so good. It's not always about the money and the other things that a private school allows. It's just they put in a lot of work there.
Yeah, and that's the thing when it comes to private schools that I tend to ask a lot of questions wherever I go, and I have had the pleasure of working with administrators at like Aquinas, at Luther, and La Crosse. Emmanuel and Eau Claire is really cool. Regis, McDonald. I love to ask questions, and their administrators have been pretty open. Some of the families and kids I've had a chance to talk to have been pretty open about things, and yeah, at the end of the day, there's no replacement for good old fashioned hard work, elbow grease.
And that's one of the things Coach Brenner uh, made a big point of. He said, you work hard all the time. You don't get anything out of not working hard out there."
Yeah, yeah. Again, so I thought it was, overall that was a great event. It was a great way to get me. Like I got in the football mindset that night.
And I hope by talking about this, maybe it pushes the idea into one of the local schools I cover. a different local school you cover that says, "Hey, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's make an event out of this."
Well, and I think that's what the conversations you and I had on the way home were very much along those lines. Why can't somebody else do something? Maybe not exactly that, but what can a local team do to make a I don't want to say a big production, but in a way there, we have less and less, um, what is it? Coming of age rights, and to do this thing like they did up in Eau Claire, like all the boys buy in, all the families buy in, and we're going to go do this thing. And we do it year after year after year. Traditions do work. And maybe it's
It,
not,
it gives the
go
it
ahead.
gives the kids a memory too. Like the first day of practice when I was in high school, 20 some years later, can I remember much about it? If anything, not really. These kids are going to remember this when they're 70, 80, 90 years old.
You're right. I think I heard a couple teams trying to do some family night type things later on in the week. I think that's always kind of cool. I know Bangor does stuff like that where they bring the parents out so they can watch the kids come out. I think they wear uniforms. I don't. I assume it's kind of like a 7 or like an 11-on-11 scrimmage type situation. Those types of things are, again, it creates an atmosphere. But to do it the first night, I think you can set the tone for a season a little bit. You just, again, it's an entry door to the season versus just an opening to the season. We're going to put a door on it. When that door is open, again, you walk through the door frame, and mentally you should be locked in a little differently.
The one thing I guess I can kind of compare it to, it's different, but it's similar in the aspect it's different, and I think it gets the community fired up, and that's what Holman Wrestling does by having the kids versus the sons versus dad a wrestling match that they do at the beginning of the season.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right about that. Yeah, weird little things. Well,
But
anyway,
no, it's like I said, I like unique things. I like different things. I like things that shake things up, and a midnight practice definitely does that.
well, again, later that day, I forgot. Like, I went to two other practices that day. I mean, several hours later, almost 12 hours later, I went to Cashton that day, and I went to Westby for a little bit that night. Did you go anyplace else that day?
I Not the next day. I needed one day to recover, but then the next day on Wednesday night, I went to or Wednesday during the day, I went to Boston, and Wednesday night I went to over to Elroy to see Royals practice. So got a couple practices in this week.
So let's talk. Let's have you talk first. I mean, I'll hit some of my Cash and Westby's and some other platforms, but Mawston, new head coach. Royals got a number of. I would say it's probably a very young team, and again, kind of a second year head coach. Talk a little bit about what you saw at Mawston, and again, new head coach.
So these first few days of practice, when you don't have pads, you don't even have the shoulder pads on. They really split a lot of things up between being outside and getting that work in, but also having uh, kind of the inside the classroom type work and the weightlifting aspect and stuff. So I didn't get a chance to see a ton of Mawston a little bit at the end, and that was mainly their conditioning. I thought the cool thing that Nick Whalen, who was the new football coach at Mawston, he implemented actually running plays into the conditioning aspect, and they would run a play, then run 20 yards down the field, then run another play, sprint 20 yards down the field, and that's how they did their conditioning. And it kind of implemented, okay, let's get used to the playbook, but also let's get some running in as well. And Nick Whalen, the new head coach, he's got a lot of experience. He has served time at Western Kentucky, kind of as a grad assistant coach, at Montana State, at Drake at the Division One level. He's worked as a coach at Platteville and a couple of the smaller schools as well, the D3 schools. And then he's never been a head coach, but he's worked at some powerhouse high schools like Darlington. He was at Mayville, I believe, Marshall recently. So he's got a ton of experience, just not that head coaching experience yet. But I think it's going to be a positive from Austin.
Well, and Mawston has some growth to try to figure out. It looks
Yeah,
like.
they're going to be a very young team. The quarterback position is kind of wide open right now. Tyler Link, who was the quarterback for 3 years there, graduated. They don't have Hayden Gillen, who was a big time leader for 4 years, even as a freshman. He was kind of a leader. So Boston really needs those leadership, those leaders to step up for them. And again, there's the quarterback position, I think, is wide open. I think Mason Byers right now is getting the first look, but that's a wide open race. And it's an Austin team that I think is probably going to take their lumps this year. They have a incredibly tough non-conference schedule. They play up in St. Croix against St. Croix Central in their first game. Then Sparta, who a little bit bigger school as well, before they even get into conference play. So Boston, I think if they can get through the first couple of weeks and not have any big injuries, got a chance to win a few conference games, I think, this year at the very least.
Well, you were telling me that you are now through some of your on air like football conference team previews. You're settling in or dialing in more locally. That South Central has undergone some interesting or big changes in the last year or two.
Oh, that conference is ever changing. And I guess that's kind of landscape of high school football in Wisconsin. When I was in high school, when you were in high school, Nate, every once in a while we'd see some changes, maybe the South Central Conference at the time most, because that's about the time where Reedsburg and Baraboo and all them left for the Badger. And about 15 years before we graduated, it's kind of when the South Central changed, where Sparta, Toma went to the MVC, some of the other schools went to the Cooley and whatnot. But really, when we were in high school, the conferences didn't change much. The South Central Conference, every year I started the radio station, I think it's changed a little bit. They've had GE Team Blackbird Falls in it. They had the Montello Co-op was in it. They've had so many different teams, and I think they got a good set of teams in there right now. But there's some travel for a team like Boston to go to Ripon or Berlin or Waupun each year. But you got a full conference now. You don't have those random non-conference games, and you get a good look at actually understanding what teams are good enough to make the playoffs and stuff like that. In the playoffs, it's a work in progress for me learning it, but the playoff system has changed this year as well.
And that's one thing that I will not talk about right now, not because I don't want to, but because I don't understand and I need to do some more research and reading everybody.
Yeah, as do I.
Yeah, and also have somebody intelligent explain it to me. So if somebody tells me what it's supposed to do and I can read it and I put those things together, I think along the way we're going to figure it out. But it sounds like, and I don't know what your talks have been, it sounds like coaches are happy with it. This is what they wanted. They think it's going to be better. We're not, I mean, not that the playoff system was perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, I don't think. But if it gets the right teams in the playoffs and seated more correctly, I think that's the end goal.
Yeah, because last year there was teams seated highly just because they had success 3 or 4 years ago, which is ridiculous and kind of unacceptable, to be honest.
Yeah, there are a couple of brackets that one really stands out in my mind, just where teams fell when it came to actual seating. And again, some of it is, I'm just going to blame computers. The algorithms weren't set up necessarily correctly. Would some of that have been negated if we had real people voting on things? I think some of it would have been. Again, to me, it's always, should the computer do everything? No, we should use the computer as a tool, but there still should be some human element to help shore things up. But you know what? At the end of the day, win your games, take care of business. It's not a big deal.
You're going to have to beat someone good to go state anyway.
Yeah, very, very true. I mean, very true. It's not like you're going to get a bunch of powder puffs, no matter how you do it. So, but yeah,
no, definitely not.
So you went to Boston. You also went to Royal. Again, Royal is a team that I don't want to say surprised a lot of people last year. I think that they ended up being a very competitive ball club. I will have to admit, I didn't think the Scenic Bluffs was very, very competitive overall last year, like outside of conference. But Royal did some things, some good, some bad. They finished the season really well, beating a good Cashion team, making their way into the playoffs, having a very competitive first round playoff game. What'd you see out of them this year? Again, a team that graduated a conference player of the year and a running back. What'd you see there?
Well, one thing I'm impressed with their coaching staff. Josh Ford took over last year. Cole Huth, the previous head coach, took a administrative position. So kind of way it worked out, he had to step aside from the head coaching duties, but he's still there as an assistant coach. So Royal has Josh Ford, the head coach. They have Cole Huth, the former head coach, as an assistant. And then coming over from Austin, Rollin Lehman, who was a long time head coach at Boston and led them to it was like 8, 9 playoff appearances in a row. He's now an assistant coach for Royal as well. So I'm impressed with the coaching staff. They got two former head coaches as assistants. Randy Board, maybe not on football, but he served as head coach at different levels. They got Ryan McKittrick, the wrestling coach, had wrestling coaches there. So they got a bunch of head coaching experience on their coaching staff, not all in football, but still that experience pays off. And they had a very efficient practice when I was there. And like I said, it helps just having all that coaching experience.
Well, and don't forget, Josh Board has been the softball head coach for, I think
Yeah.
I think he might have celebrated his 10th season this past spring. 10 years, finally won a piece of a conference title, and it looks like that softball program is probably, that's the front end of what looks like could be a nice upswing there. So, again, if nothing else, if you put in the time and pay your dues, good things can happen typically once you can get everybody kind of on board and I don't want to say suffer through some of the bad, but you're going to have some lean years, you're going to have some good years, and coaches are just like players. They need time to figure things out as well. Some can do it a little faster, but communities aren't always patient enough with some of their coaches. And I do think if we were a little more patient, we could help foster more success and longevity in coaches.
Yeah, it is sometimes the fans, the parents, they can be a little hard on coaches. I see that at least at one school a year, it seems like, and that's at this level in smaller towns. I can't imagine what it's like in other areas and stuff like that. Uh, it's good to have parent involvement. It definitely is, but you got to have parents in moderation with the amount of effort they put in sometimes. It's good to have, but it's good to have in moderation, I think, too. But again, I think Royals got a really good coaching staff for football, and also they got some size. Their line is bigger than I thought it would be. The freshman class is very strong. They were undefeated in middle school football last year. They got a 6'3" freshman wide receiver. He's a huge kid. He's not a skinny 6'3" either. And pretty much he's got some speed as well. You throw a ball up to him, it's going to be at least a 50-50 ball. And they got some people to replace. You got to replace Jackson Bender, who a very good running back last year. He actually led his all-star team in total offense a couple weeks ago in that Wisconsin Football Coaches Association small schools all-star game. I think he had a 50-yard run and led the team with like 93 yards rushing in that. Got to replace him. Carter Uppina, they got to replace him at quarterback. Got to replace some other aspects as well. Braxton Board, Josh Boyd's son, will get the start at quarterback. And Jet Bender, Jackson's little brother, he's going to get a lot of carries this year. He looked a little bigger than me even from the baseball season. So I think there's reason for Royal to be optimistic this year.
Well, don't forget, Royal also had, so they had the conference co-players of the year, co-offensive player and lineman of the year, right? Because who was their lineman of the year? One of the Carters. Who was the other Carter? Not Olsen.
Carter Olson, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you got to replace him too, which is a big guy to replace.
And, I was looking through photos, and when I look through photos, that's a good indication at times, especially on defense, where your defensive strongest players lie, because I'll see a certain number and they'll just end up in every photograph because they're moving around the field, making tackles. Mm-hmm. They're pushing the line around at the point of attack. And he was one of those kids that ended up in photos, not always solo photos by himself, but he's in the pile. He was in the mix, and changing out that leadership is sometimes tough. And that's where I think where Royal, being a little younger, might struggle, is just that leadership. But then again, leaders have to emerge somehow, and you have to throw them in the mix and hope You give them enough tools to be successful.
Yeah, and I think like I talked about Boston, you're gonna have to find someone to be a leader for them. You're exactly right. Royal's gonna have someone step up. Trying to think offhand who I think Jet Bender, even though he's only a junior, could be one of them. Braxton, only a sophomore, but is a coach's kid. I think a little bit more pressure on you to be a leader that way as well. But yeah, definitely, I think a senior like Dylan Velasquez, someone like that, they're gonna have to step up and be that leader and maybe take on a little bit more serious tone as well at times this year.
Well, I'm going to transition to the couple that I went and saw because I think this is a good point to do it. When you talk about growing into leadership, last year, Cashton didn't have a lot of leadership. Nothing against that senior class, but it was a small senior class that followed the senior class in front of them, which was very highly successful and had a lot of athletes. There just weren't a lot of playing minutes available because the class ahead of last year's seniors did everything, and and even 2 years ago, you're that of the class that was 2 years above them, kind of the same same boat. Last year, Cashin maybe lacked a little leadership. However, they had to throw a bunch of younger kids into the mix, and this year, I think they're pretty battle tested. Talking to Coach Hammersbach about that, I think he feels there's a lot more experience this year. Some of the gaffes that they had in 2024 won't be gaffes that they have this year simply because kids have learned. Kids have put it on themselves to take a different role. Kids have put it on themselves to learn, and they know now what it's like to be the not so much the guy following the guy, but the guy that kids follow. Again, that type of leadership is really hard and really tricky to come up with year to year, especially when you have a big class. And that's what last year's senior class suffered from. They just never got a lot of experience on the field. Last year, that was kind of their first time. I mean, that team still made the playoffs. They've finished in a three-way tie for third in the Bluffs. Again, the Bluffs was a little middling, after your top two teams, but Cashin's a team that I would expect to probably challenge for a conference title again this year.
Well, I think it helps that they have a veteran coach and Coach Hammersbach, but probably him and Coach All at Hillsborough have been there the longest in the conference.
Yes. I think you are correct. Jeremy Mack and at Brookwood has been there. I think
Okay.
about 10 years as well. So you
Okay.
got three guys there that have been there for about a decade. Not that Jared at New Lisbon hasn't been around a program. He's been around New Lisbon's program.
Yeah.
Not that Coach Grant at Bangor hasn't been around the program. He's been around it, and a baseball coach for 10, 15 years or so at this point. So again, there's coaching experience around the league. But yeah, you're talking Hammersbach's been there long enough now. He's suffered through some lean years, and
The
he's
leanest to lean years almost.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then he's also had again a post COVID. Again, that program has risen, and I think it's hard to see it going away in the near future, simply because there's culture, there are numbers, and it's really once you start winning, it's really hard to screw that up. Once you put that in motion, it's kind of hard to screw that up, especially in football when so many of our Bluffs teams struggle just to even have 20 kids on a roster.
Hmm. And Cash and they had a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores last year. A lot of talent, but like you said, they were young. They were freshmen. They were sophomore. And I know you're expecting this, and I am too. I think a lot of those kids are going to blossom. They're going to bloom this year, and they're going to be dangerous, at least within the conference, dangerous football team.
Yeah, I think that their first two non-con games will tell us something, especially that opener with Wazeeka Steuben Seneca or Seneca Wazeeka Steuben. I forget who is the lead in that co-op. And I say that only because last year I thought that was a game Cashin could win, probably should have won. And then I saw the score and they
Mhm.
lost by double digits or two scores or more. That's a game that I think Cashin needs to win this year. And I think if they don't win it, then their expectations of being different than last year maybe a little in jeopardy. But on the other hand, taking maybe a somewhat bad loss maybe that flips your season as well and gets you to work a little bit harder. That's something that I think that team can also figure out. Again, they aren't perfect, nor will they be, but I still think that they're probably a conference title contender.
And I think with the new playoff format too, you hate to talk about playoffs and training camp, you really do, but I think there's a little bit more weight behind the non-conference games with the new playoff system as well. So a 9 week season, every game matters that much more than when you're talking about basketball, where there's 25 games, baseball, softball, where there's 20 plus games, volleyball, where there's 20 plus games. A 9 game season, they all matter now, Nate.
Yeah, I would actually be okay if we did the same thing with basketball and just pared it down to about a dozen games. That would be a wild experience because every game would be, it would be hard to want to miss a game. And again, in basketball, we just have so many games, or in baseball, we have so many games. We almost take it for granted. And maybe if we pared it down, it would just change the perspective on everything as well. Not that we need to, but you're absolutely right. Less games in football means every game is must see competition, and regardless of how I feel the Bluffs is going to be as a whole, we will, I think, typically have playoff impacting games almost every week. Like actual, like real impactful games when it comes to playoffs.
That's a good thing.
I think you're right. Even though neither one of us completely understand how the playoffs are going to work, or getting, at the end of the day, the simple formula is this: win all the games you can, win as many games as you can. If you're over 500, you're probably getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Don't leave anything to chance, though. Win as many games as you can.
Well, again, the last place I stopped was Westby. New head coach, Alec Gluck takes over. Andy Hulse was there for.
He's a young guy, too, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And guess what? He's getting married this weekend.
Congratulations to him.
I think so. I gave him a hard time. I said, how would you?
You're not his photographer, are you?
No. How would you schedule that and kind of once football season started? And it sounds like that was set up before he took over the head coaching position. So it's fine. It's fun to tease him about it a little bit. I'm sure that this week has been nothing but stress, and I know that he was at helping with the Legion baseball tournament last weekend. So I honestly don't know how he's juggling all of his time, because eventually the guy has to teach too. So he's got probably some prep work eventually coming up with that, as much as he can try to summer like that again. So you're sitting watching baseball, 15, 16 games of baseball over the course of 5 days. You got football practice right on the heels of that, a wedding, and then you have to come back and keep doing football things. I mean, that's a lot, right?
It is. But I don't want to say he's just getting married, but some of our local coaches, our local volleyball coaches, Labor Day is going to take on a different Labor Day meaning potentially, because we're at the beginning of the volleyball season. They're going to be in literally Labor Day.
And I've got one in mind that you don't know about from a different school that I found. Again, we maybe haven't talked enough, and she finally shared the information with me, because it kind of changes or impacts how we would do our media day stuff or our photo day stuff during their during those first couple of practice weeks. And in my head, I'm just like, oh, people, that's a big responsibility to take on in the middle of a season. I know it can be done. I've seen it done before, but you're right. That's again, those are all good things as well. Those are life things that are bigger than sport.
Definitely. And life comes before sports. As much as it pains me to say that sometimes, life does come before sports.
Well, again, going through this first week, I was happy with what I saw. I kind of wanted to see more games, but quite honestly, I was dragging. I mean, I saw Mondovi football practice yesterday from afar. I had some senior photos with a different Mondovi kid. We did senior banner photos with football and volleyball earlier in the afternoon. I know Coach is pretty hot about their season. He's one. Craig Lowsharter's one that if I want to get pumped up for football, I'll send him a text and I'll get something back, and I'll just, yep, let's go. It's ready. Let's go get me a helmet. I don't even need a helmet. Let's just go play. and I can apply it not just to games, but I apply that to work and the work that I do. I get fired up. I live off of that energy. Again, I'm excited to hopefully get back up there for an actual practice to talk to them. But I know that team's always ready to go. But I mean, this week I just couldn't get out to stuff. I still had pool stuff. I still had some other obligations. Next week I will be out at some different things. Do you have a couple teams you're looking forward to next week at all? You're hoping to go visit?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough because with the work at the radio station, it's Fair Week in Boston, Juneau County Fair Week, so a lot of our attention has to be focused on that. But be nice to get out to maybe Hillsboro to see them this next week. I think they got a chance to be in the mix in the Scenic Bluffs this year.
Well, and they were last year. Again, they were part of that three-way tie for third. I don't see them dropping further than that. I think it'd be hard to do with kind of the landscape of our conference, but even finishing third might still be a dogfight. I think 1 and 2 are a little bit unknown, but even then, all it takes is one bad loss, and one bad loss could drop you into third.
I think it's going to be, with the exception maybe two teams at the bottom. I think it's going to be a pretty solid within the conference season for the Scenic Bluffs. I think there's going to be a lot of good matchups on the football field.
I'm actually not going to ask you to talk about the Bluffs there very much here, and I'll tell you why. Because you're going to share that on your own, right? So I think this is a great time. I would need you, not want you. I need you to, kind of plug. What are you doing at the radio station with some of your conference previews right now?
About halfway through them, we started with a couple of the local teams from outside of our local conferences. We did Toma, we did Reedsburg, Waniwak Center Weston, which is 8-man football. Covered them. Almost done with the South Central Conference. We have Mauston go on right now. You can go to our website, wrjc.com, under sports to find how I have the local teams doing. We have Mauston was the most recent ones. You can listen during our sports segments to hear how I think Mauston will do. We got Coach Whalen. We got some sound bites from him in there as well. So to find out how all the teams in the Bluffs coming up next week, we'll start, I think, on Wednesday. I think we start out with Ithaca and find out where I think they'll do. Again, just because I say this doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. Games are played in my mind. They're played out on the football field. But I'd like to think, especially at Bluffs, I got a pretty good feeling how I think their local teams will do. But again, you just don't know until they're actually out there in the field.
Yeah, and honestly, half of the fun of sports, as much as it does kind of get old. Like right now, ESPN, whenever I flip on TV or on the radio, we're speculating. We're talking a lot about training camps and injuries and trade things and holdouts and hold-ins and Texas Hold'em, whatever it is.
Yeah, no one to hold them and no one to fold them.
You're exactly right. I usually just go all in because if you're not first, you're last. So you might as well give it a shot. And you can't win if you don't bet, and you can't bet if you don't bet big.
Exactly right.
I don't go to the casino often, and there's a reason for it.
I think there's a former baseball pitcher that sang a song about that.
Oh. Again, I don't want to spoil all of our goods, and even though I love talking, speculating who's going to go where, I'm going to hold on to that for a little bit myself. Again, we divulged a few probably hints of where I feel or where you feel some of our teams are going to be, but again, I wanted to make sure that you talked about those previews. What did you say? WRJC.com?
Yep. Or you can listen to 92.1, 92.9 FM, 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, noon. On the weekdays, 4 and 5 in the afternoon, and during the top of the hour, we'll have our sports segments where I tell you how I think our local teams will do. And again, sometimes it motivates some teams. I picked Toma to go 0-9 a couple years ago. They were upset about it, and they proved me wrong. They made the playoffs that year. I predicted Toma to go 0-9 this year, so I hope, as my alma mater, they say, "Shut up, Mike Baker. We're going to the playoffs again."
You and I've had discussions about this, and I've changed my philosophy a little bit on how we pick or do preseason, polls or picks if we're going to rank teams. Quite honestly, I put less and less stock in it every year in terms of like, I want to care and try to get the top team right, but there's stuff through the middle. I kind of have a very vague gauge with how it goes, but I used to worry about it a lot. And now I just say, we're going to come up with a list. And this list is a fantastic talking point. Someone's going to argue about it. Someone's going to hate me for my pick. I'm okay with that. Why? Because at the end of the day, the games are played on the field. If you really want to know and really want to see what's going on, go out to a game. And I think you would agree, even though you're on radio, you want people to listen, through the airwaves. There's nothing like being at a game on a Friday night or for Thursday night or a Saturday afternoon. Doesn't matter. Give me high school football in some way, shape, or form. Give it to me live. And that's where we can really see how things do play out.
Yeah, if we played games in my mind on paper, I would not have a job. So I definitely want to see these teams out on the field. And like I said, I predict a team to do bad, me more than anyone else. I want to see them prove me wrong. I want to look stupid. I want them to prove me wrong.
If we played games out in my mind, I'm pretty sure Royal.
I could only imagine what would happen then.
Royal would not have had a 39 game losing streak. What was it, 15 years or so ago? I think I would have been nice and not made them go 9-0 every year either. But again, we have to have some compelling stories someplace, and 9-0 isn't always as compelling as 5-4 or even 6-3.
No, and then sometimes every once in a while there's a 6-3 team that makes a pretty big playoff push. So yeah, you just don't know until you know.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we kind of speculated a little bit. Go to WRJC.com to listen to his previews. Again, Mike sees the game differently than I do. One of the things I will continue to talk about very openly, I don't do X's and O's very well. I have looks and feels and perceptions. I'm not saying I would be a bad auditor of talent and ability. I actually think I'm pretty good about it. But Mike sees it differently. So go listen to his takes and see how they line up with yours. It's only a couple clicks away. Let's face it. The phone's in your hand. You can easily type. It's like 6 or 7 or 8 characters. That's not hard to do. And go see where he's at. Again, it's nice to have some local takes because we don't have that everywhere. The schools that the heart and soul of what I cover for GX3 Media, it's kind of in a media dead zone in a way. I mean, TV doesn't come out on a regular basis. If you weren't there, Mike, doing radio, these teams wouldn't have any radio coverage, or very little. I mean, the guys in Viroqua cover a little bit, but they're not getting anything out of the Dells or Toma or Sparta or even La Crosse, to show up often, if at all. I mean,
the Dells has a radio station that covers the Dells, but that's about it. And we got to give Craig Otto props. He does a good job with covering the Toma sports too.
Yeah, you're right. Craig is one of those that I would lump into this and say, yeah, without him, we don't have media coverage as well. And quite honestly, our local newspapers have crumbled, withered, died for whatever reason. Dollars and cents. I'm just going to blame stupid corporate overlords. We don't get the coverage that we had. Even 10 years ago was a very different story. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you could find box scores. You could find that information. Now it's all online. We need, I mean, because you're looking for stats as well. We need teams to buy into WisSports, or it sounds like we're making a push to go.
Yeah, well, yeah, it sounds like there's kind of a shakeup with WisSports too. That we'll see what happens the next few weeks.
Right. And again, as we shift, I think Travis Wilson's going to go work with Bound or GoBound.
We're bound for a new adventure now.
Bound for a new adventure. I've worked with Bound. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's important for coaches to know that it's a good source of information. It's like WisSports, but if WisSports is going to just get rolled into Max Preps and not be its own individual entity, then I completely understand, why somebody who put and invested a lot of time into making WisSports a big thing, why they would maybe bop away. Again, I don't want to speculate as to as to why or what those, let's say, conflicts of interest may be. But shoot, at the end of the day, I want stats. I will want stats preserved. And
Hmm.
regardless, with sports, go bound, doesn't matter. If it's a private company, it's hard to ensure that those stats are going to be there. So I'm always going to plug and push and hope that the WIA, which I feel should have been done 20, 25 years ago, should have infrastructure set up so all coaches are reporting to their site and not just scores. I'm talking everything. That way they're in charge of their own media. They have everything. Because the WIA, love them or hate them, they're good people that work there that are trying good things. That organization isn't going anywhere. And that website would last in perpetuity, I would believe. Whereas some of your private organizations, again, let's face it, look what happened to Wisports. It's changed parent companies in the last 10 or 15 years a couple of times. That affects what happens to the information looking forward, or, what happens to our cataloged, chronicled information from 5, 10 years ago? Do we lose that? My answer is, I hope not, because that's a big loss. And saving all that information is important. That's the one thing about the internet. It is digital. It's easy to click delete and it just goes away. And that's something that we shouldn't tolerate. Anyways, that's kind of a tangent though, right?
A little bit, but it's good to go on tangents from time to time.
Well, I know that you're on the same boat. I mean, you're looking for
Oh,
stats and scores like I am. We want scores from all the games in one location as easily accessible as possible the night of.
I would definitely like that. Like you were talking about box scores. When I was in high school, one of my favorite things to do was go to the local paper and look at the box scores from the football games the night before, and we just don't have that available anymore, and it's kind of a shame. And With Sports has done a decent job of getting them on there a few days after the game, and it's not With Sports' fault when it wasn't on there immediately. It's usually trying to get the coaches to send the information in and stuff, but it's nice to have, and it looks like we're gonna have to maybe look forward in a different place here moving forward.
Again, I'm curious to talk to Travis or to see some of his updates with where that goes, with his new adventure goes. I thought that for the most part, he did a good job getting teams to buy into, if nothing else, buy into Wisports as a platform for conference standings, scores, stats to a degree. Again, stats are on the coaches, and if they didn't put things in, it's on the coach's fault. The most organized coaches, to me, put their stuff online. The ones that maybe aren't that organized or don't care that much, they'll hide scores. They'll bury them. They will let them go. Those who don't put in all the stats, we want to hide our turnovers. We want to hide our, interceptions. We want to hide, our strikeouts. That's being a little too subjective with our numbers. But for guys that work in the media, those are resources. Those online resources are absolutely big blessings.
I'm going to say this right now. Hiding your stats is not going to win you any extra games.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. You're probably right about that.
But that's only my opinion, but it's a opinion that I'll stand on the top of the hill for.
Well, hey, I think we're reaching about the hour mark. I didn't know how long we would go. I didn't want to put borders on this. Again, I will continue to say we are figuring out how to do this format. I like the long form format. This didn't feel like work. This really felt like a great conversation, and that's why I'm glad I brought you on. Again, good insights. It's really nice not to be talking in a room to myself. And again,
I do got to ask you one last question
sure.
here before you ready to learn some hip hop keto?
Oh gosh. Yeah, coming up this weekend? Absolutely. I thought about that, and honestly, I haven't gone. You and I both hit a stretch of things in April and May where, I mean, I think I had more than you, but I had 3 or 4 cons. I had 3 or 4, celebrity type guests to go meet, and then a dead zone of 2 months. And I kind of missed that culture, but we're going to go to Madison on Sunday, and we're going to go meet the original Black Ranger, Walter Jones. I know that it's very sports adjacent, but again, he kind of made up the hip hop keto that he did in Power Rangers was, I think, a mostly made up thing. It sounds real cool. It looks really cool. And for me as a fifth grader at the time, you would have been what, like second grade? Um,
Oh yeah.
you would have definitely fallen in love with it because he was a cool guy, right?
Oh, he was definitely he was hip and he was hot.
And I have reason to believe after watching some reels and some different videos here and there, even 30 plus years later,
You know what I just learned about him?
what? Oh, that he was
He was missing a finger. I just learned that this week.
I learned that maybe 15 years ago, which again, it's a long time ago, but it's still like 20 years after the show happened. It's
I never paid attention, I guess.
no, I didn't either. And I'm looking through trading cards and some posters. And I'm like, it, it's not there. There are only three, three fingers and a thumb. We probably should have noticed, but then again, I was in fifth grade. You were a second grader. We're not going to think to us. Everybody has every appendage.
Yeah, the only person I ever noticed that was missing an appendage was Jim Abbott, a really good baseball pitcher that played 1 year with the Brewers when I was about 11, 12 years old.
Oh, yes, you're right. Because you played for the Angels for a long time, right?
Yep, yep. He played for a few different teams, but went to college in Michigan.
Well,
I must say he had some kind of decision, did something in the last Wisconsin baseball game ever played for UW Madison.
Interesting.
He was the last opposing pitcher, something like that.
Interesting. Well,
Don't quote me on that. Look it up yourself. That's kind of like the old reading Rainbow. Don't take my word for it.
nice. Yeah. So you and I are heading down to Madison. I think it's a MadX con. So I'm hoping if it's like the one we went to last year, there'll be a lot of anime, which I don't really care about anime, but there are enough.
Some wrestlers that I want to see though too.
Yeah, so that's the part I was going to say. Like the guests are a little different. Last year there were a bunch of Power Rangers guests there. This year there's only the one. I'm not a big wrestling guy, but I never watched it as a kid. That was more your thing, and I'll say that's something that I've kind of picked up on recently, and I've really really enjoyed learning some wrestling history from the 80s and 90s. That late 80s, I would say early to mid 90s. There is kind of an interesting time of wrestling that to me, I think is interesting and compelling to learn about. But again, they've got a couple of big guests. Which two or three are you looking forward to see?
But I don't think he's there on Sunday, but Sting will be there on Saturday only, it sounds like. And then Mankind, McFoley, Dude Love, Cactus Jack, whatever you want to call him, he'll be there both days. And then two guys that I already met, but Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, they'll be there too.
When you talk about Mick Foley, he was one that didn't really stand out to me. I did watch a documentary about his career. Guy seems really interesting.
He does, and he kind of came out of the scene making it out on his own, so to say. And he was one of those guys that, first of all, wrestling, yeah, they're kind of predetermined. It's choreographed a little bit, but they take real bumps. They take real hits out there. And he was a guy that absolutely put his entire body on the line.
I read the story and then I saw the footage of some steel cage match where he got thrown off the top. I think it was like a 30-foot fall onto concrete. They threw him on a stretcher and they're going to wheel him out because the guy probably should have been dead, but he wasn't. And I don't think it was scripted this way, but then he got up, climbed back to the top, went on about the match, fell through the cage, then onto the wrestling mat. And like stories like that, like he put himself through a lot. And I love hearing wrestlers talk about, again, the performance side. Again, as a kid, I thought it was stupid. Like it's stupid. It's fake. It's not real. As an adult, I can really delineate, like it's not real in one sense, but it is very real in another sense. And that is where I am absolutely hooked and absolutely enamored by what they do and just the way that they perform, because it's not just wrestling. Like I expect a high school wrestling match to play out. Like they draw this thing out. There's a lot of drama. It's over the top. I think you've called it like, stupid, mindless fun. And in a way it is, but there are subtle nuances to a lot of this that I've really, really come to enjoy learning about and watching and witnessing and trying to understand and hearing them, the wrestlers, talk about their experiences is really kind of cool to me.
It definitely is, and you got to be an athlete to be even a WWE, a WWF wrestler, and that's why you see so many former football players and other athletes, former Olympic style wrestling. Those guys become wrestlers because you have to be an athlete. The Rock, he played for the University of Miami football. He played a little bit of CFL. Uh, some of these other guys, they were professional football players, big time college football players as well. Roman Reigns played at Georgia Tech, so they're athletes, and that's why they have successful wrestling careers. But also they have some charisma and stuff too that set them apart from a lot of your average athletes.
Yeah. Again, I'm interested to meet who we meet on Sunday. Again, I think it's going to be a good day to be inside. I also just I want a con. I want another one of those experiences. I actually didn't think I would have as much fun going to those as possible as I do. As much as I do love the celebrity guests, that's fine. That's never going to dull that completely for me. But it's meeting some of the artists and other people, vendors, and maybe some of the other con goers. That actually is really the fun of it. And I'm pretty shy and I don't really like to talk to strangers that much, but,
No,
um,
I don't think I've ever heard you talk at all. So
right. But that's really kind of the fun of the whole thing. I think when we went last year, you went to a panel, didn't you?
I did. They had Phineas and Ferb, and they just started a new season this year, and that was kind of cool to listen to them and pick their minds a little bit and stuff like that, and kind of learn what goes into making some of those animated shows.
And I know that it's all very like none of this is super sports related, but again, we need breaks from sports too. And I think that's what makes you and I. I don't want to say different, but that's what keeps sports fresh for us. Sure, I like to put a little bit of a sports slant on some of the discussions I might have. Again, with those original Ranger actors, they were all martial artists. That's a whole different sport that we don't really have as a true sport. But if you lived in California, having martial art competitions like they do in Karate Kid, that's a real thing, I think.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even around here, it's not as common or not as big time, but the local fairs and stuff you go to, they'll even have some taekwondo or karate demonstrations and stuff like that.
Yeah, and through all sport, I think you could find some common through lines. You know, discipline, athleticism, hard work, training, practice, training, practice. In order to peak, in order to reach your zenith as an athlete, and I do think most athletes want to get better somehow, and if you don't, then you kind of stop doing a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even in your profession, my profession, you constantly are striving to be a better photographer. I'm constantly striving to be a better sports broadcaster. It's just how I think most of us are kind of programmed.
Well, I'm sorry I had to make you eat a little bit of crow to come on this show that isn't completely fully formed. So you're stepping back for me today. I do appreciate that. Again, I'm glad that I had you on today, Mike. It looks like we can make phone calls come in. I think I'm going to tie this up real nicely. It looks like I can get phone calls to come in. It sounds like the audio is pretty good, at least on my end. Do you can't hear yourself talk, right?
No, which is probably a good thing. I hear myself talk enough.
Okay. So again, it sounds good to me. I'll work with the recording. We'll get this posted. I'm going to keep posting things on the YouTube channel because eventually we're flipping this to video so we can do some video casting, vlogging, whatever you want to call it. Again, that's the end goal, but we're not quite there yet. Again, working through some of this audio is a trick. But again, Mike, thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it. It was fun to talk about first week of football. Maybe going into the first week of games, we should maybe speculate or make some picks and really, really get people ticked off at us for picking against their team. But again, that's all the fun. That's all the good fun. And I do think that this medium is something that we don't really have a lot of. And I really, really want to capitalize on it in this area because I've talked about it before. It's a different way to tell stories. Your post-game interviews, it's a different way to tell that game story.
I think everyone thinks they're a podcaster now in this day and age, but it's what podcasts are interesting, and there's not really a niche for local prep athletics for podcasts, at least in our area. And I think this is a very cool thing, a very good thing that you're trying to do here, and hopefully catches on, and hopefully you keep doing it, and you get more and more people tuning in here over the coming years.
Again, thanks, Mike, for coming on. Remember, if you're listening to this, hopefully you're listening through the YouTube channel, the GX3 Media YouTube channel. Make sure to go visit Mike at WRJC.com and follow him throughout the year. He's on socials as well. So go interact with them. Give him a hard time about supporting the Brewers or supporting the Packers when they lose. But again, that's what fans do. And let's face it, he's a real sports fan, everybody. So give him some support when you're out at a game. Say hi. He'll take free popcorn as well, I think. But anyways, Mike, thanks.
I take free anything. Almost anything. Almost anything.
Free.
Don't treat me like the WNBA right now, though.
All right, Mike. Thanks a lot for coming on. We'll talk to you the next day.
All right. Thanks, Nate. Thanks for having me on.
And that's the GX3 Media Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great night.